Harry Moore-Gwyn showed us some of the portraits in this collection of British Romantic art.
And this to me has the strength of Holbein about it, these famous portraits. In the Royal Collection, there's a bit of drawing, but also with the medium, the chalks, the sort of red and white chalks on that paper, that washed paper, and the black chalk and pencil of the hairline. Strang is probably best known as a printmaker, but he did wonderful portrait drawings. This is John Masefield, the famous poet, who he painted quite a lot, in fact. But this is, I think, the earliest known image by Strang of Masefield from about 1903. Economy is often a sign of a great draftsman, I think, and I think Strang is a great draftsman. Knowing where to stop and where you don't need to over-finish something. I mean, you're in a sense led into the face of this drawing. A lot of the jacket and the clothes is suggested by a few lines, I suppose, But in no sense does one think of it as being unfinished or unresolved. It's a very complete drawing. That's what the Strang and the Spare have in common almost. I mean, they're completely different in most respects. I mean, there's a formality to the Strang, which this just doesn't have. This is much wilder, if you like, as a drawing. Spare's an extraordinary artist. He was both a cult. He never had any money. He was a real outsider in British art. He's known for his amazing self-portraits, but he did these sort of hyper-realistic portraits of people based on some newspaper cuttings. As I said, Wallace Beery, he won an Oscar. He's an actor. This is done essentially from imagination. He said he didn't sit for Spare or anything like that. And it's given this fairly extraordinary title, Wallace Beery Differentiation. The word differentiation is a kind of quasi-philosophical term that Spare's come up with to talk about hyperrealism and something that is removed really from reality, because although this is a very realistic drawing, it goes far beyond what you'd call reality. It's almost too intense to be a real drawing of anyone, let alone of Beery, who, as I said, he never met anyway. The works by Lanning's collection now, we didn't have any of the big sort of landscapes by him, but we've got a couple of nice portrait watercolours, just a portrait of a man. And then this one of the elderly ladies, sort of sitting essentially on her Windsor chair, sitting there in an interior. As in, she's got something quite poignant about her, I think. Sort of older lady, sort of reflecting. That's very different with sort of Anning's subject matter, I suppose. She did also do portraits like this, and I suppose she's best known for the idealised cottage garden landscapes. I mean, I think, to me, they're also rustic subjects. I have suggested in my introduction that these essentially could be the inhabitants of one of her cottages, typical rustic types of the date, I think. Also another wonderful British artist of the late 19th, 20th century, very influenced by French realist painting, artists like Millet. This is slightly different, actually. It's a study for a painting that's lost called The Sleeper, when he was looking at slightly more symbolist subjects, and so less the sort of realism one associates with them. He did a series of nudes. This one called Primavera. The Primavera one was attacked by suffragettes when it was exhibited, and there's something about the way Clausen approached the painting, the female nude, that was almost shocking in some ways. So this is the latest work in the collection. It's the final work in the catalogue. Emma Sargent, hugely respected portrait painter, draftsman, a living artist. She's called it Life Drawing. I think the whole title is suggestive of this being a study rather than a deliberately finished work in that sense. This was bought by the collectors from a Fine Art Society show in 2004. It's probably indicative of the fact that this is not a collection that is bound particularly by dates or subjects. It's bound by sort of common sort of themes, common strengths in painting and drawing. I think great draftsmanship, and actually great portrait draftsmanship, I think, is one of the things that this collection does show a lot of examples of. We've got things going back to William Henry Hunt, through Watson, through the Strang, through the Spare drawing. To a degree, the lovely Annesley Brown and the boy painting, which is probably there to this. And they've all got, they've all, in a sense, they're sort of timeless, these images, I think you could argue.
Visit the full exhibition at Six Masons Yard until the 28th of October.